Alright, Apple versus Microsoft, the new iPad 10 versus the not-so-new Surface Go 3. Two very different but also somewhat similar devices, so for general comparison, let's go over the raw stats. The iPad 10 is Apple's new and improved entry-level tablet with quite a few exciting features, starting at a price of $450. While the Surface Go 3 is Microsoft's budget-friendly laptop with some features of a tablet, starting at a price of $400. Both of these devices are eligible for student discounted pricing, which is great, and both of these devices have accessories that most people buy together, so here are their prices as well. With these stats in mind, now let's talk about their form factors. The iPad 10 is 10.9 inches large with a great screen and solid resolution, while the Surface Go 3 is 10.5 inches with a good but not as good screen, sporting a lower resolution and PPI. Overall, both screens are good, but the iPad takes the cake. Let's keep going. Next, for connectivity, there isn't much of a competition. The iPad 10 has one port, USB-C, while the Surface Go has that same USB-C in addition to a headphone jack, the Surface Connect port, a micro SD card slot, etc. It's impressive that this little machine has that many ports. It's super helpful for its users. So yeah, point goes to the Surface Go. Now for cameras, both these devices are pretty good. The iPad has a good camera system with single lens cameras in the front and the rear, with the front camera being in landscape mode for this year's new iteration, while the Surface Go 3 has a very similar setup, two cameras, one in the front and one in the back, with a landscape orientation for the front one as well. Overall, they're pretty similar, but small features like Apple Center Stage and higher picture quality gives the iPad the edge here. So for the externals, the iPad has a better display and camera setup, while the Surface Go 3 has better connectivity. And now let's move on to the internals. First, the internal specs. Given these two have very different operating systems, both of these devices perform fairly well, especially considering their prices. The iPad sports the Apple A14 Bionic chip, while the Surface Go starts with an Intel Pentium chip up to an Intel Core i3. So the Surface Go 3's processors aren't amazing by any means, but they are adequate. With that in mind, for demanding computer applications, it might struggle a little bit. And here are the single-core performance benchmarks of these device configurations, and here are the multi-core. So yeah, as you can tell, the iPad is a bit better in this regard. And for storage, both devices are not great, but they do tie. Yeah, 64GB starting for both, which is abysmal. For your information, Apple and Microsoft are the kings of being stingy for storage, but still, wow. The next Surface Go and iPad need more storage. But even still, the Surface Go does come with a micro SD card slot, meaning the storage is expandable. So point goes to the Surface Go. And now the battery lives. Both devices, barring in mind the prices, are pretty solid. The iPad gets around 10 hours, which is amazing, and the Surface Go 3 on average 6, which given that it's a $400 laptop is not bad. I'd say both are pretty acceptable for their prices, but the iPad is better in this regard. And additionally, they both have security software, with the iPad using Touch ID and the Surface Go using Windows Hello. And finally, for the operating systems, the iPad runs iPadOS while the Surface Go uses Windows 11, meaning we have two extremely different devices to compare that I'll bring up in my verdict. And to close this section, let's briefly go over their operating systems, because the iPad runs a tablet-esque one, iPadOS, while the Surface Go runs Windows, a PC operating system, which means these are very different in their purposes and capabilities, with the iPad being more like a tablet and the Surface Go being more like a PC. And we'll continue this more in my verdict. But in summary, the iPad 10 is faster and has a better battery life, while the Surface Go 3 has expandable storage. And now let's get on to my verdict. And here we are, the iPad 10 versus Surface Go 3. Which is best for you? Well, firstly, I would wholeheartedly recommend whenever you are seeing this to go find out if the Surface Go 4 is coming out, because if you can wait, it could bring a whole host of new features that you might like. But bringing it back to this discussion, who are these devices best for? As previously stated, these two are fairly different, despite sharing similar footprints. The iPad 10 is an iPad. It's a tablet that can do tablety stuff very well, and also has a few laptopy features built in, such as being able to take notes and draw, but also be used with a keyboard and trackpad. Does that make it a laptop? Absolutely not. But it does share some features of a laptop, while the Surface Go 3 is a very portable laptop with the form factor of a tablet. Now, Windows is not a great tablet operating system, frankly, so if you're hoping hoping for a good tablet experience with the Surface 2-in-1s, you might be a little disappointed. They have fantastic form factors and designs, but they might not be exactly what you're looking for. Therefore, here's the conclusion that I made for these devices. If you want a full-fledged tablet, prefer Apple, and or already have a computer, get the iPad 10. Tablets can be great companions to your setup and can help you be far more productive if used properly. So yeah, the iPad is certainly not a laptop. Its operating system limits the programs it can run and therefore is not as versatile. So get it if you want something more like a tablet. But if you want a laptop, prefer Microsoft, or just don't like Apple, and or could use a computer or another one, get the Surface Go 3. Look, at the end of the day, the Surface Go 3 is a PC. It can run your usual programs like Steam and be used like a typical computer. But what it lacks in is in the tablet department, because it's not as well developed as a tablet as compared to the competition. Its operating system, Windows 11, is not made for tablets. It's made for laptops. So by all accounts, get the Surface Go 3 if you want a laptop. And also definitely make sure to check them out at your local Best Buy just to see them for yourself. And that was my comparison between the Apple iPad 10 and the Microsoft Surface Go 3. I hope this video helped, and I hope to see you again soon. My name is Seeroos. It's spelled like Cyrus, pronounced like Sea Rooster, just take out the ter. Thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Peace.